a few examples of hippies who've made a lot of money in the American economy. Like Ben and Jerry, maybe. Steve Jobs, was he a hippie? Johnny Appleseed, he made a ton of money. And he was like a hardcore hippie. Like he lived in the hollow stump of a sycamore tree for part of a year. By the way, my name is Dr. Tim. If you like unexpected history, then go ahead and give me a follow. Jonathan Chapman was born in Massachusetts in 1774, right before the American Revolution. His family moved west to Pennsylvania, and he kept going. He moved west to Ohio and Indiana, and he spent his time planting apple seedlings all over the place. He would hang out in cider mills where they would dump out the seeds in the waste next to cider mills in Pennsylvania. He had a little catamaran canoe set up. He would load up one of the two canoes with a bunch of apple seedlings, and he started floating down the Ohio River in the early 1800s. He would go up tributaries of the Ohio and plant apple seedlings everywhere. He was picking out choice pieces of land where he expected people to settle and planted apple seedlings to anticipate them moving in so that they could improve their land by planting orchards. Johnny Appleseed's clientele was people like the Lincoln family. Thomas Lincoln moved his family from Kentucky to Indiana in the early 1800s, and Johnny Appleseed would show up at a place like the Lincoln's little cabin and say, "Hey, I've got a bunch of apple seedlings. If you're interested, stop by my orchard later and I can help you improve your land." By the time Johnny Appleseed died in 1845, he owned a bunch of land all over Indiana and Ohio, and he'd done pretty well for himself, even though to look at him, he apparently was a very poor-looking guy. Now, they didn't have the word hippie back then. Johnny Appleseed was a Swedenborgian. He followed the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg. He didn't believe in injuring any insects, animals, or plants. One time he threw away one of his shoes because it stepped on a worm, and he punished his shoe and went barefoot from then on. He didn't even believe in hurting plants. He wouldn't graft apple trees. He only grew apple trees from seeds. So that meant the apple trees that he grew were only really good for making cider apples because they were often far too bitter to eat. So maybe he was a hippie like that too. He was helping people get a little buzzed. Sometimes the richest people are like that, They don't look like much, but they've got a bunch of money squirreled away, appled away. Johnny Appleseed.